worship together with you guys. I'm thankful for you. And I really appreciate holiday weekends like this. Happy Memorial Day. It's anybody enjoying pool time? It's like 40-some degrees this morning. It's like polar bear plunge, break the ice off the pool. But nonetheless, it is good to be able to celebrate freedom. And we're super thankful for our soldiers, men and women who've given their lives so we have that freedom. And ultimately, that hunger to lay down a life for freedom comes from Jesus. So we recognize God is the ultimate source of sacrificial love. So I'm standing down here instead of up there on stage because this is a little bit of a different kind of service. Super sorry for you guys who are watching online that's just missing out, because this experience will be a fraction of what it's meant to be in significance if you're just a spectator. We've got around the room different neighborhoods represented. We'll talk about that in a minute. And it's going to be an opportunity for us to hear from some of you about how God is working, God is moving. And it's also an opportunity where we're going to huddle up in sort of neighborhood groupings, maybe get to meet some people. Maybe if you came in and come out and don't always get to know people here at a service, this will be a weekend you'll get to know some people and actually to pray together. And so let me just set the context of where we're at in our experience as a church. About a month and a half ago, we had a culminating weekend, an overflow commitment weekend. Anybody remember overflow? I know our lives are so busy, we've got so much going on, but it's a big deal for us as a church. We're in a 2-year journey with the Lord to overflow Jesus, which means drilling down into Him and having His rivers of living water flow up in us and then through us to bless the world. And that we would be a blessing here and literally as far as the remote desert regions of Kenya. We've got a team going next month, in July, and we're excited about that. We'll be hearing more about that. But a big part of overflow is catching God's heart. In fact, that's where overflow begins. It begins with the Father's heart for lost and broken people. And that includes us. And then in Jesus, we are being made whole. And we are being restored. And we've been found. But God's got a lot of His people, like men and women, boys and girls, that don't know Him yet. And so we're trying to catch His heart. And that's why we did this Go and Be Week. You know, our series has been the Father's heart. And it's very, very easy for us to just think, okay, the Father's heart is for me. And then sinking that from, like getting that from here in the head to here in the heart. It's 1 foot, but it can be a mile deep, just because of the brokenness of our past. And so we're going to keep going after that idea that God, the Father, loves each of us. And when we know and are anointed with the oil of His love, when it soaks in, man, it changes everything. And one of the ways it changes us is we begin to notice and care about people who don't know His love also. And if we're not intentional, we can easily become self-absorbed in the Father's love. It's just for me. And it can reinforce selfishness. Instead, we want to realize it's for me to flow through me to others. That's why we did Go and Pray Week. And it's not just a one and done. So if you're here and you're like, oh, that was this past week. Yeah, I basically did nothing for that. No worries. You'll get to do something today. So that's good. We're going to pray today. And it's meant to just be an impetus to pray for lost and broken people all week long, like for the rest of our lives. And so that's what we've been praying for. And we shared with you guys a couple apps that have been helping us. And one of them is this prayer app. And so on the screen, if you could put that picture, which is a before picture. And I'm going to try and do some screen mirroring. Caleb, if you could turn that on. It's not showing up for mine. But the before picture is the Holy Here app. Did we lose our screen projection? Looks like we did. Oh, no, we didn't. All right, there it is. And this is Harrison. This is actually the blue dot there in the middle is where we're sitting right now. And this was taken after the overflow journey began. The women did a prayer walk where they went out from here on a Saturday morning and prayed for just our community in our area. And I so wanted to show you a current. For some reason, I'm getting nothing on mine, so if we could just do the after. I think there's another. Oh, we probably deleted that slide because I'm supposed to project it. Oh, gotta love technology. Let's try one more time. Nope. All I'm getting is a 75Q75OG. So AirPlay code, are we getting that, or is that a different AirPlay? I'm probably not on the right Wi-Fi. It's worth pausing, so give me a second. Let me switch that over, because this is really cool. You guys, many of you have gotten intentional. I'm on the private. It's the public one, isn't it? Or is it private? Sound booth Wi-Fi. We're cooking with oil now, folks. Thank you, IT guys. So it's spinning, which means it's about to open up. I want to show you, and I want to encourage you guys to try this with the Holy Here app. So this is what it looks like. It's this kind of thing that zooms in on the area, and then all of a sudden you're going to see the area is really lit up with prayers. These are people who've started this for a public prayer walk. Man, this neighborhood here is right by the airport, and it's literally got an airplane landing. Isn't that kind of wild? Man, I was looking at the high school. Someone's lighting it up, praying over at the high school, circling around it. And so our area is beginning to get saturated with prayer. You can see arteries of prayer going out into the neighborhood. How cool is that? And this is just a visual way of representing it. And then I use the Bless app. Every day it sends me this suggested prayer based on the rhythm I requested 5 days a week. Pray for my neighbors. I click done. And here's what's cool. I remember that when I hit about the 1,000 prayer mark years ago using this app, that was the weekend. I'm looking at Rachel right now. That was the weekend where you and Kevin randomly just showed up here at service. I would run down my street and I would lift my hand sometimes and I would just pray, hunger, 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 awaken, awaken, awaken. I'd just pray for neighbors. And God was stirring. God was answering those prayers. And you guys came. And it was so cool. Friday night, Kevin and Rachel have said, we have God's heart for our neighbors. And so they started a drinks on the driveway. They just opened their driveway. People come and invited. And last month, there was like 2 people, and they came an hour late. And so Sunday, a week ago, we gathered in your driveway, and we prayed for neighbors. And this week on Friday, 4th Friday, drinks on the driveway, as Julie and I were walking out of our driveway down the street, I mean, it was like roaches coming out at night. People were just coming out. It was like the Pied Piper. People were just like going to your house. There was like more than 12 people there. And it's just cool to see how prayer does something. And I use that as an encouragement and as a motivation for you. Don't stop praying for lost and broken people all around you. God uses it. I would like to take a minute now to hear if anybody would be willing to give a testimony to how you are sensing the Father's heart, either for you or for people around you, lost and broken people in your world. And I know nobody loves speaking in front of others, so I will bring a microphone to you. And it's cool if there's a little pause, but I know there will be some folks who will say, yeah, I'll say something about that. Here's how I am sensing the Father's heart for me, or here's how I'm responding to his heart in loving other people. Or maybe you tried prayer this week. What was that like? This is time we've carved out to hear from you. So who would be willing to share something? All right, thanks. In the back, and then we could come up. So every service, there's a pause. It's awkward, and people are like, oh, nobody's going to say anything. Yeah, they will. Just give it time.
So God's really been preparing my heart for the last couple years about being careful to judge those who he starts using and speaking through. That we as the body and believers need to be careful that we don't become the prodigal son's brother. That when somebody stands up in a service and begins to speak truth, that we don't measure that person by what we know about them or what we see, that we measure it by what God is doing. And he's prepared my heart for probably about 2 years for that.
Okay, thank you. That's a good word. No measuring here except the measure of love. You guys are going to work me. You're going to work me front to back. How are you sensing the Father's heart for you or for others?
Well, we recently, about almost a year ago now, we moved from a neighborhood where we knew everyone out in Guilford, that we were the first house back there in '07, and we knew every new neighbor that moved in, and pretty close to a neighborhood that we really don't know. It's an older neighborhood, so definitely feeling called to get to know our neighbors better. Like we've met the two on the sides, and we all have to take our garbage to the same place. I've met a couple up there, but just trying to reach out to them a little bit more and share Christ with them.
So again, your new neighborhood, but when you moved in, your thought was, how could we get to know our neighbors? So you meet them at the dump.
At the dump, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty much.
Love
Garbage
it.
cans.
Very convenient. Thank you. Anyone else?
I would say it's a both and or, because I have a dream to be a missionary, and in this moment, preparing for that, I always felt like, why am I here? I'm not doing anything. And God has been showing me that I can do things and that He is working in others through me. And like recently, I was talking to someone at my work, and they came to know Jesus. And then yesterday, I was talking to another girl about Jesus, and she was really open to it. And so I'm like seeing God working through me to reach others, and I'm like, wait, actually, I can still do something in this. So yeah.
Yeah, can I just comment on that? Because that's the coolest thing. You felt a heart to be a missionary, and you saw that as a future thing, and then God activated you here and now at your work, and it kind of sounds like you're living like a missionary right now.
Yeah, there's just one quote by Charles Spurgeon. He said, if you are not a missionary, then you're not a real Christian. And some people will think, oh, it's a missionary with going out, but you're a missionary wherever you are. So it's just...
Do I have permission to drop this mic right now? So good. And you don't get to be a certain age. You don't have to be a certain age for that. It's like here and now with the people in your sphere of influence. And in a minute, we'll pray for neighborhoods, because that's one of our influence areas. Work is another big one. Thank you for sharing about that. Friendships, people we hang out with. Very cool. We got time. Do we have anyone else? Okay, over here. Dave, how are you sensing the Father's heart for you or others?
Well, just real brief and easy. We have new neighbors, and we haven't had much of a chance to talk with them, but all you have to do is take the initiative to do a little something to help them or inform them about some things, and people are so amazed that you would take the time to be friendly and to help them without any reason why. That really stands out in our society today. Just take the first step.
I love that. And I was immediately thinking, when you said help them, inform them, hey, your grass is too long. I'm going to cut it for you because you can't cut it yourself. No.
I did.
You did that, but not in a bad way, in a good way.
Oh, in a good way.
Okay, that's awesome. So fun. Guys, thank you. Love that. And sometimes we overcomplicate this. It's just having a heart that God has for people, praying for them, and then looking for opportunities and not giving up. This next story is actually recorded. It's Melody Adams, and it's her story of having prayed for her husband her whole life and seeing him come to know the Lord just before his passing. Here's Melody's story.
Hi, I'm Melody Adams, and I wanted to share this for anyone who knows someone in their life that doesn't know Jesus. And we all know we're called to look for places to share the gospel and to plant seeds, but sometimes that one who needs to be won could be in our workplace or in our schools. or in our house, as it was the case with me, and that person was my late husband, Kevin. We got married, and we ended up coming to church, and that's where LifeSpring comes in this very room on March 31st of 2013. It was Easter Sunday, and we were invited to church by my best friend, Debbie, and her husband, Randy. And so we came, and they had such an unusual service. And Kevin, he had been raised Catholic, and he had walked away from the church, and so there were easels all over this room, and people were painting these odd designs. Didn't really seem to make a lot of sense until they were finished, and they assembled them all on a cross that was hanging right there, and it was the face of Jesus. And that grabbed Kevin. I could see it on his face. And on March 10th, he walked in the house crying. And he was grieving his parents. And I grabbed my Bible, and I don't know what I planned on saying, but a tract fell out of a church I've never visited. And I recognized the illustrations in it. And so I went through these illustrations and witnessed to him. And at the end I said, now is there any reason you wouldn't want to pray and accept the Lord right now? And he said, yeah, Mel, there is. He said, I'm not worth anything, and he wouldn't want me. I said, look, I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to pray with me just because I'm sitting here talking to you, but I don't want you to not do it because of the way you're thinking. Because I said, if we have to be good enough and if we have to be worth something, none of us would make it. And I said, and Jesus really had a bad day that Friday for nothing. And Kevin wasn't the kind that would have done anything he didn't want to do. He would have made an excuse to leave the room. But he took my hand and he said, okay, I think I'm ready. And so I prayed, and he repeated what I said, and he asked the Lord into his heart. But on April 27th, we were sitting there listening to a CD he cut, a song called If I Can Dream. And I said to him, I don't know what made me say it, but I said, someday I'm going to have that played at your funeral. And you would have thought he might have said, well, what makes you think I'm going to go first? But he said, good, that's the one I want. And the next day, he woke up and he said, I love you. And I said, well, I love you too. I thought he just had a weird dream, but I think he was saying goodbye. Because that evening, he came in, he wasn't feeling good, and I said, we need to take a trip to the hospital. And he said, can I just sit here a minute? I'm so cold and I'm so tired. So I covered him up, gave him a kiss, and it started. And I started CPR on him, the squad got there, and he woke up. And I thought, oh, thank you, Lord. And I had him in my arms, and he just looked at me, and he went, phew. And he blew a breath right here, and he was gone. So I didn't know I'd be planning his funeral that soon, but he did sing at his own funeral. And so I have comfort in knowing I'm going to see Kevin again someday because I was obedient. I have told his story to anyone who would listen, people that didn't know him, people that did know him. I got a chance to share this with a lot of people who weren't saved. And it was a great segue to just bring the subject up when typically you wouldn't be able to, you know. And I tried to keep his memory alive to people who knew him and didn't know him, because he's up there singing for the King up there. He may not have gotten to sing for him down here in a church, but he's got a personal audience with him now. And it doesn't get much more cool than that.
Man, the expression of joy for her in knowing that this life is not all there is. So let me ask you this question. Is Jesus good news for after we die, or is Jesus good news for today? Or C, all of the above? All right, yeah, it's a trick question. Yeah, he's good news for after we die, but he's also good news for today. And this is why people need to know. They need to know we have this short span of life, this earthly life here on earth, and then we meet our Maker, and we stand accountable, and are going to be deemed guilty as charged. And Jesus wants to step in and take the punishment and penalty for us so that we can be free. And that would then give us a new identity here in this life, and joy and freedom, hope, purpose. That's why we care for the lost and broken. Thank you, Melody, for sharing your story, inspiring us to not give up. 30-some years she prayed for her husband. 30-some years of taking a Connect card and writing his name on there and bringing it up with others. Would you pray for my husband? She did not stop, and God broke through. And I just want to encourage you. You might think your family members, your friends are so hard-hearted and uninterested. And they might be at this point, but you don't know what God could do to soften them. And there's a scripture where Jesus teaches this. It's Matthew chapter 9, if we could put that on the screen, verses 36 to 38. It says, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. I got a couple questions for you guys. And you can just shout this out from wherever you're at. Sorry for you online. I can't quite hear you through cyberspace. So if somebody types in a response, you guys can shout it from the tech booth. But what does this show us? What do you see here about the Lord? Look back over those verses and just shout it out if you see something. Compassion. Okay, right away that jumps off. He was moved by compassion and is moved by compassion. What else? What was that? Love, yes. It does not say love anywhere in here, but it sure seems like love is moving him in compassion. What else do you see? That's interesting. It doesn't just say that he felt compassion. It says he sees us. And what is our condition? We're just getting hammered. We're just getting beat down. We're getting harassed. And we're like sheep without a shepherd. There are no roving flocks of wild sheep because they're devoured. They're only a cultivated, or not cultivated, but a shepherded animal. And so he sees us, and we are sheep without a shepherd. He wants to step in to protect and provide for us. He's moved with compassion. He sees us. And guess what? If we have his eyes, we will see that in others too. What else? There's more here. Anyone else? There's a go. Yes, we're gonna get to that with the laboring and asking. What else do you see about the Lord? Who is he? He's given a title here. He's a shepherd, yeah, because he's implying he's a shepherd, but it's even more obvious than that. Lord of the harvest. We kind of missed that. We didn't catch that right at first. But he's saying, I'm the Lord of Harrison Township Harvest Field. I'm the Lord of the Fairfield Harvest Field. I'm the Lord of the Bright Harvest Field. It's my harvest. And I'm looking for workers who are going to come join me in that harvest field. That's compelling to me. Sometimes I feel like I find that when I'm praying, I'm like trying to stir up God to care. I don't have to stir up God to care. I just got to tap into his care for the people all around me. Does that make sense? And so he's the Lord of the harvest. It's his harvest, and he's put us to the missionary point, ding, 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 in our workplaces and even where we live to be a laborer. He gives us one command here. This is the only place in the New Testament of all of Jesus' teaching that's recorded where he tells us specifically what to ask for and to do it earnestly. And what is it? More laborers, more workers, more people to go out and work the fields. And guess what happens? If you are on your knees doing what Jesus said, if you're a follower of Jesus, you're somebody who's doing what Jesus said. So this is something we should be doing. If we're not doing it, we're going to start doing it today. And we're going to say, Lord of the harvest, please send out more workers. Lord of Harrison Township and all these harassed and helpless sheep around me, you want to be their shepherd. Would you send people? Would you send somebody? If only you would send somebody. I caught myself praying one time for family members out of state. And I was just praying in my heart, God, if you would just send somebody, like, is there a neighbor? Is there a coworker? If only somebody would be there to reach out. And all of a sudden, I had this conviction that there was somebody down there who could do that, who was praying for their brother, uncle, aunt, grandma, son, or daughter who lives next to me. And that I was the answer to their prayer, and they were going to be the answer to my prayer. Does that make sense? So when you're praying for laborers, guess what? You start to feel the tap on your shoulder. You become a laborer. And so what does my response look like? It looks like one of two things. One of disobedience. No, Jesus, I am not going to pray earnestly for more laborers. Or obedience. Yes, Jesus, I will pray earnestly for your work and for your workers. And so he's given us a challenge, and we want to give you a chance to respond. And so around the room are neighborhood clusters. I think kind of got Indiana stuff in the back. Hidden Valley, Bright, Lawrenceburg, Aurora, Guilford, Sunman, Brookville, Batesville. We kind of have some Western Hills. I see Cincinnati, West Side, Cleves, Fairfield, Coleraine, Ross, Okeana, Fort Scott, Crosby Township, Harrison Township, the new Trailhead, some other Harrison-specific neighborhoods, West Haven, Whitewater Trails. I didn't know what to call the Deerfield Winding Way area. Someone said Westbrook might be what it's called. Stone Ridge, Parks of Whitewater. You've got Hickory Flats, Carolina Pines. And then in the back, I see downtown Harrison and West Harrison Meadows. And so your neighborhood or area may not be represented, especially if you're visiting from out of town. Thanks for being here. But we want to encourage you to go with who you came with and go to the one that is closest to where you live. Take your purse, take your communion. You're not going to be coming back to your seats. We're going to end this service. Can you lock the doors? Great. Doors are locked. You're not going anywhere. You're going to meet some people. Introverts, you can begin to, extroverts, you're like, finally. Go to those areas, and then on the screen are some prayer prompts. You got 6 of them here. Praying out loud is hard. You don't know what to say. Here's what you can say. These are the prayers. And it just takes a little bit of willingness. In your groups, we're going to ask for you guys to pray these things. Introduce yourselves. There's clipboards up front. And we wouldn't mind, if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and sign so that you're not signing up to do anything. We would just love to connect people who live in the same area, who are part of this church. And so go sign in, introduce yourselves, somebody be the leader, and just say, all right, well, let's go ahead and introduce yourselves. If you're standing alone, just kind of huddle up with people nearby. So if nobody else, last night there was 2 people in Trailhead. We were in Harrison Township. We just merged. So you can just merge groups. And if you're a super big group, you might want to subdivide. So Anna, you can help look for big groups and chop them in half. And so once you get there, what are you going to do? You're going to sign in, and a leader's going to say, let's introduce ourselves, and then you're going to pray these prayers, and then we'll give you more instructions at that. So have us stand up and go ahead and head to the neighborhood nearest where you live.